All right, folks, so this is a video I'm actually really excited to do, and I don't think it's going to be that lengthy, but I think it's one of those sort of expansive videos talking about what is an exciting conjunction, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 20th of this year in 6 days' time. But it puts you, as you process the conjunction and some of the dates around it, it puts you in a really kind of thoughtful and expansive mode. And when we're not dealing with the minutia of, an awkward week when Mars is going to conjunct Saturn, or an awkward week when Mars is going to conjunct Neptune, or stuff like that, or even something, even when we look at next week, and by next week I mean the weekly overview I'm going to do tomorrow on April the 15th. So just know that on Monday, April the 15th. And as you already know, as I mentioned in my last video, this coming week actually has a strain of opportunity to it, clearly a lot depends on what is going on in your personal charts. So if Saturn is going over your moon next week or your sun next week, that's going to be a very different, or placing an awkward, that's going to be a very different experience than if Saturn is trining your sun or trining your moon, for example, in your natal chart, the transiting Saturn, I mean, from Pisces. So take what I'm saying with the understanding that it's talking about, it's a general reading talking about where the planets are right now, but this is kind of what we're talking about. A couple of housekeeping things first. Thank you to everyone who was so warm in the comments about being able to start to monetize the channel. And second, I am sorry, that will mean that there will be ads on the videos. Now, I've noticed that ads have been on my videos all along, even recently. So I know some folks have said that there are more ads. It says, so I apologize for that. I don't, it's going to become like other people's videos. And I would appreciate your tolerance of that, because if in whatever way, I'm still very new to this whole sort of world of monetization. I've just kind of flipped the first couple of switches, and there isn't a lot to flip necessarily, but what I mean is I haven't gone through everything that I need to go through in it. So if there's something there that gives me a sense of how I can manage and control certain things that I'd like to control in my videos, I will of course look at that and try to do that in a way that's user-friendly. But I would appreciate very much your patience until I get a few things figured out. And as I said, insofar as it helps me keep going and being able to do these videos and sort of enjoy some benefit from it financially as well, that would be wonderful. And quite frankly, needed as part of whatever it is that I'm trying to do. Astrology, is not, doing readings is not a scalable business. There are only so many readings you can really do in a day without exhausting yourself, and so many videos. And beyond that, it can't expand. So it's actually, for a lot of people who do readings, personal reading, all that kind of stuff, there's a cap on what you can do, at least in terms of the basic paradigm of doing videos and doing individual readings. So just know that, understand it. I certainly started to do this more out of a feeling of compulsion and sort of the joy of sharing, and that continues to be the primary impetus. All right, now with all that said and done and to the side, let's talk about Jupiter conjuncting Uranus on April the 20th. As I've mentioned to you before, as far as I am concerned, this is a conjunction that has been in the works since May 2023, when Jupiter entered Taurus. Both Uranus and Jupiter are in the sign of Taurus. And as those of you who follow my channel have heard me say, let me just say this really quickly for anyone who's for whom this is the first video you're viewing of mine. Wherever Jupiter goes, in my experience, it ends a 12-13-year cycle and starts a 12-13-year cycle. As one astrologer that I talked to a long time ago in the early 2000s kind of described Jupiter as a planet of auspicious new beginnings. And I've really looked at it from up and down and sideways, and that really does resonate for me. The conventional view of Jupiter is that it's somehow going to expand or provide bounty, or it's just like it's going to make you a millionaire if it's going over the second house. It's going to give you a huge promotion if it's going over the 10th house, or you're going to get married if it goes over the 7th house. And I find that Jupiter is much more interested in alignment and in giving you a lucky break to move towards that alignment. And with Jupiter, it's very much about ending a cycle. Jupiter takes about somewhere between 12 or 13 years to go around the chart. So to end a 12, 13-year cycle, and in Jupiter's case, what I see it do is I see the ending and I see the blank slate being created. Sometimes the new thing comes in or is on its way. Sometimes I liken it to the drop from a glacier that is eventually going to become a river. Sometimes I will see that the new thing comes in while Jupiter is still making that transit. And sometimes I know in one instance, I kind of amusingly can look at Jupiter's transit in a certain part of the chart, and I thought, this is what this new beginning is supposed to be about, because there was an ending and there was a new beginning, but now X number of years into it, I can see the new beginning that was actually being created. And with Jupiter, it is often a desired new beginning. If Jupiter is transiting the 4th, for example, 4th house of homeland real estate, I find that it can set a client on a path on finding something that really is just the right environment, and that a client is actually potentially really going to enjoy it. And the beauty of recent Jupiter conjunctions is that they have been with expansive planets. Certainly Uranus is an expansive planet. I'm going to come to that in a second. Prior to that, Jupiter would have conjuncted Chiron and the North Node. And really, prior to that, it would have conjuncted Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. And all of those conjunctions have been occurring since 2020. And I'll go over them in a second because I think it's worth going over them. But certainly when you look at the North Node and Jupiter and Uranus, they all, with Chiron, it is a more internal process. With these other entities, the North Node and Uranus, there's a similar theme of authenticity and integrity to oneself. And with Jupiter, this is also fair. With the North Node and Jupiter, as I have mentioned to you numerous times, or enough times I think by now, they're both really expansive. The North Node has a kind of more magical, I think this is what I want to do. This is what, it has a desire to it. It's that calling, it's that call in the heart. It's that right strategy that we're here to learn and incorporate and develop into. It's the right path for us. Some people might say it's our dharma in this lifetime. Now, I've already given you my warning about the North Node plenty of times, which is if you're going to pursue it, which it's going to be very hard for you. The people who I find, my clients have heard me say this, have a more fulfilling second half of life are those who are following and falling in line with their North Node strategies. The people I encounter who are not having an easy time of it, especially in the second half of life, are often still operating in their South Node, which just acts as this kind of strength, this set of overdeveloped muscles that we've incarnated with and that we've been born with and that we already know, and that's a source of comfort, and we don't honor where it is that the North Node wants us to go. Granted, the North Node has a kind of a magical, nebulous carrot at the end of the stick quality. As I like to say, it promises more than it delivers, but it's the only way it can get you to move in its direction. And the path towards it is often Full of adventure, but also full of terror. I liken it to walking on a tightrope where you don't know if the rope is going to keep coming in, because it's a set of behaviors and patterns that are not overdeveloped. Whereas with the South Node, it's just immediate. It's like you can go from first to sixth and operating in the South Node with a sense of comfort that is so powerful and so strongly developed, but there's no growth, and it's just an energy leak. It's not the right path. But Jupiter, like the North Node, also has a sense of what it is that might be right for you. With Jupiter, as with Saturn, there's an element of participation and co-creation from us. How in tune are we with what our path is? How in tune are we with our own integrity? How in tune are we with our own authenticity? Do we recognize what our path is? And so when Jupiter comes around to a particular house and transits that house over the course of about 13 months, 12 to 13 months, as it has been doing in the sign of Taurus, and therefore the house occupied by the sign of Taurus in your birth chart, are we ready and clear to work with Jupiter as it ends what needs to be ended and gives us the opportunity to make an auspicious new beginning or take that lucky break in the direction that is right for us? With Jupiter, as I've said, if you're already on the right path, it seeks to spiral you upwards. It seeks to refine that and move you in the same direction, but in one that is more, but one that is now even more specific and elevates your participation in sort of the right set of activities over the next 12, 13 years. If you are not on the right path, Jupiter often creates an ending, like a layoff. Here we are expecting that promotion, and Jupiter comes in and hands us a layoff. And it then says, all right, well, now, are you going to move towards whatever is right for you? Are you going to go back to what it was that you were doing and maybe start something on the side, which is another way of incorporating what is right for you? Or are you just going to take my transit and keep doing what you were doing? There's an element of participation from our side with Jupiter. But ultimately, the thing that Jupiter and the North Node share is this connection, this knowing of why we incarnated, why we are here, and what direction is right for us. Now, when it comes to themes of integrity and authenticity and our authentic self, we also, that is Uranus's function in our chart. Where are we ourselves? Where are we brilliant? Where do we get our epiphanies? And wherever Uranus transits, whichever sign and therefore whichever house is occupied by that sign in your birth chart, it seeks to make us authentic, and it seeks to have us follow the path that is right for us. And it may be that that path does not follow conventional wisdom. So if you are a physicist and you are trying to get tenure at a university, and typically you would follow these steps and publish this way and do that way, Uranus might may well get you whatever it is that you're trying to get to, but in a different way of doing it that is unique to you. You might do some kind of research or something that means that you get to the same point, but you don't follow the conventional path. You follow the path that is right for you. That may not always make sense to the others. It may feel a little bit like, why am I going this direction to go this, how, that kind of stuff. But the question of authenticity, all these three, and then when we factor in something like Chiron, we're talking about a cycle of healing. Now, out of all, why am I talking about all these planets? It's because whenever Jupiter makes a conjunction with a planet, it's not as simple as Jupiter starting a new 12, 13-year cycle related to conjuncting that planet. On the one hand, it does that. On the other hand, the conjunction with the nature of the planet affects Jupiter. Jupiter conjuncting Saturn or Jupiter conjuncting Pluto is a very different experience than Jupiter conjuncting Chiron, the North Node, and Uranus. If the planet that Jupiter is conjuncting is, and forgive my use of this word, some people will argue with it, but I'm going to go with it, stronger than Jupiter, strangely enough, further away from us. The further away a planet is from us, the further away a planet is from us, the less participation we have with whatever it is doing in our chart. The more control it has, the more it is in charge. So by the time we get to Chiron, but especially by the time we get to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, those planets, wherever they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to transform that part of the chart. And all three of these planets have this element of fate and knowing what is right for us and removing our attachment to anything that is not right for us and therefore arguably toxic or exerts too much power over us in the wrong way. With Uranus, it is a little bit more exciting because it fills us with vigor and integrity and an inner knowing that makes us want to be true to ourselves. And therefore, anybody who is not in alignment with our truth and our true self or anything suffers as a result of us becoming more and more embodied and in touch with our truest selves. With Neptune, it is a slightly more painful challenge because Neptune dissolves attachments to things that we may be attached to and creates a sense of loss. But in the process, Neptune is also connecting us very much with spirit and reminding us. It's connecting us to this idea of Neptune is the anti-possessive planet. And it's so strange because when we think about things like Neptune and Pluto and the kind of, you would think, but Neptune is constantly trying to remind us that really we're leaving with nothing. And so the things that it's trying to dissolve, the things that it's trying to distribute in a collective way, the things, it's as much anxiety as, and Neptune's ways of doing that through kind of deceptiveness, so thievery, or real fogginess, or lack of clarity, or not quite knowing what's going on, is challenging. With Pluto, I mean, it is a completely, it is out of your, you just have to pay attention to what Pluto is doing and cooperate with it. And if anyone associated with a part of the chart is having trouble letting go of you, that is where this quality of power and power struggles comes up with Pluto. But with Pluto and Uranus, you're also in touch with where your own power is. With Uranus in your birth chart and the house that it sits in your birth chart, where you are brilliant. And with Pluto, where you can, where and how you can exercise your power. Now, where and how you can also get involved in power struggles, but that's how you learn how to exercise your power. And in Neptune's case, where Neptune is in your birth chart, where it is that you get inspiration and you're most connected to inspiring spiritual, the muses, for lack of a better way of putting it. When Jupiter meets up with planets that are outer to it, and who I would argue are kind of more powerful than it. I know a lot of people would say, oh, Jupiter is the most, and I'm just like, you're watching my channel, just take my perspective for what it is, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, do your thing. Especially, those conjunctions, especially when they're with heavier energies like Saturn or Pluto or even Neptune to some extent. But Neptune has a kind of has an interesting frequency when you look at Jupiter. They kind of are connected to, they're both entities that connect to source very, very directly. They're more interested in us connecting to God, spirit, source, whereas a planet like Saturn and a planet like Pluto are much more interested in connecting us to our 3D reality and what is going on within that confine. Everything has a spiritual purpose and has a spiritual underpinning. Saturn might be really pissed off at my description of it being worldly and may say, in order to be successful in a worldly way, you've got to be connected spiritually. And Saturn is all about what that means. What are our self-sabotaging tendencies, and what are the ways in which we don't fulfill our potential or make mistakes, and what are we to learn, and the kind of discipline that is required. And ultimately, discipline is, it is fundamentally a spiritual exercise. Do we act in our own best interest at all times? That's Saturn. And Jupiter and Neptune are a little bit like, let's connect you to source. Let's focus on the magic. But with Jupiter's conjuncting Saturn and Jupiter's conjuncting Pluto, the effect is a little bit, especially the conjunction with Saturn, a little bit reality check to the expansiveness of Jupiter. And it's not as if Jupiter does not affect Saturn as well, but the effect is more, I find, the other way around. But like a planet conjuncting Saturn, the reality check can also be about how do we build what we want to build in the part of the chart that the conjunction is taking place over the next 12, 13 years. But when we're talking about the last few conjunctions that Jupiter has made, and this next conjunction Jupiter is going to make, they're all with expansive, and in the case of Chiron, healing entities. And at least the conjunction with the North Node and the conjunction with, this is partly the reason why we're in such an exciting time, and why, for example, this particular eclipse season seems to carry so much weight to it. And especially if we think about this time as post-COVID, 2022 onwards, strengthening into 2023, finally feeling in 2024 like, oh, a lot more back to normal. It's also creating this sense of, yes, we've got the heavy energies in the Pisces part of the chart, but this is the remarkable thing about all these planets now, really in about a quarter of the chart. Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, the North Node in Chiron in Aries, and Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. Soon, by May 25th, Jupiter will enter Gemini. It'll broaden out a little bit and make this much awaited trine to Pluto in Aquarius, which we'll talk about as we get closer to that. But that too is nice and expansive and interesting. It will square Saturn and it will square Neptune. We're not done with the Pisces part of the chart and what we're trying to stabilize there. But the expansiveness in 2023, getting stronger in the second half of 2023, in 2024, is present and felt. A bit under threat, a bit feeling like we're nurturing a flame, but present. And these Jupiter conjunctions have a lot to do with that. Jupiter conjuncts Chiron, a new 12, 13-year cycle related to healing something in the Aries part of your chart. Very important and very relevant. That conjunction happened in March 2023. Well, in March, April 2024, Chiron is the planet of the moment. The retrograde Mercury is conjuncting it 3 times, and the new moon solar eclipse on April the 8th was conjunct Chiron, as I've told you, to the minute, not just the degree. So in March 2023, Jupiter was like, here, an auspicious new beginning. And a year later, we continue to deal with this idea of coming back to ourselves in the Aries part of the chart and healing something. And while Chiron's transits are always going to mean this wherever it is that it is transiting, but there's something, you know, when some of you ask me, why do I keep referring to the crisis in the Pisces part of the chart in 2014, 15, but especially 16, 17, it's not, yes, we had Neptune in the South Node and the South Node eclipses in that part of the chart, and Chiron. But it's not just that. It's what is happening with those transits. What is the story that continues? After those transits are done, does that part of the chart get a break? Or does it really not get a break? Because guess what? Here are the Mercury retrogrades in Pisces since then. And guess what? Here's Jupiter coming in. And guess what? Now here's Saturn coming in, and Neptune's still there. And, you know, and here's the North Node eclipses starting to come in. And it's like a part of the chart that just does not, given where it sits and given where the planets are at, it keeps that crisis alive. It keeps that situation going and getting worked on. In the case of Chiron in Aries, there's a real expansiveness to this idea of, all right, let's heal this. Now, Saturn will come into Aries in early 2026, and it will, but by that time, Chiron will be even further on. I can't remember when Chiron enters Taurus, but, you know, Jupiter conjuncted Chiron in March 2023. And then guess what? From May 16th to July 17th, 2023, Jupiter conjuncted the North Node. I've been telling you there's something about July, August of 2023 in terms of us feeling like there's something we want to go for, we want to reach, and it has to do with the Aries part of the chart. That's where we had the new moon solar eclipse on April the 19th, 2023. Then we had Jupiter conjunct Chiron prior to that in March. But then we had Jupiter conjunct Chiron May 16th to July 17th, 2023. And I've been saying that it kind of set off this idea of moving in a certain direction, God bless us, in a kind of a North Node way. So we were ready to go, but perhaps we hadn't quite, or maybe we had, but there was a reason. There were astrological, there was a reason why things were then thwarted between September to February, and then middle of February, bam, the gates opened again. And that's where we are here, you know, in this Mercury retrograde eclipse period that we are starting to move to come out of, but we're still in for the next 2 weeks. To help us accelerate, commit, get some clarity as to how we can get from where we are to where that direction is where we want to be. Understand that we still have eclipses of release. Why did we get thwarted in the second half of 2023? Well, we had a whole eclipse cycle between October 14th and March 25th in the sign of Libra, where we needed to release something before we could move forward. We get to go into that release eclipse cycle again, October 2nd to December 2nd of this year. And then we have yet another North Node eclipse in Aries on March 29th of next year. And now Jupiter comes in to Taurus in May of 2023. And by the way, those conjunctions with the North Node, the conjunction with Chiron occurred. This is really important. And I want to make sure, because I have given you the impression that the North Node conjunctions were in Aries. Jupiter's conjunction with Chiron in March was in Aries. Jupiter's conjunction with the North Node between May and July was in Taurus. Even though the North Node eclipse had occurred in Aries on April the 19th, the North Node was in the process of actually moving from Taurus to Aries. One of the things that I have mentioned to you, and this is also unusual and specific to our time, is that it makes it just a little harder to interpret timing in the Taurus and the Aries part of the chart, because the two expansive entities, the North Node and Jupiter, changed signs, bringing not the same energy, clearly, they're different planets, but a similar feeling of expansiveness to both signs. One had Jupiter first and the North Node next. One had the North Node first and Jupiter next. So this idea of expansiveness, potential connection to whatever's going on in the Aries part of the chart and the Taurus part of the chart. As I mentioned to you, everything that is going on with regard to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart with Saturn there now and Mars there during April. Everything to do with the growth and the expansiveness that we're feeling in the Aries part of the chart. We've got Venus there right now. We've got Mercury retrograde there right now. This coming week, we're going to have Mercury retrograde and Chiron and Venus conjuncting. All these three entities will be conjuncting each other over the course of this coming week. We're in the new moon in Aries. We're in the new moon solar eclipse cycle of Aries. But everything is serving this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And I remember when I was writing this down, that Jupiter-North Node conjunction, May to July 2023, was in Taurus. The planet of auspicious new beginnings and the planet of following our purpose, leaning into, at that time, the Taurus part of the chart, even though the energy of leaning into had also started to move into the Aries part of the chart, with the first North Node solar eclipse on April 19th, 2023. And now Jupiter conjuncts Uranus. These are all starting 12, 13-year cycles, but it's happening 2023, 2024 in this expansive area. Aries and Taurus, the houses occupied by Aries and Taurus in your chart. Jupiter conjuncting Uranus is the last time Jupiter conjuncted Uranus was between June 2010 and Jan 2011. I really want to just look at that one more time. Yeah, June 2010, Jupiter and Uranus conjuncted in Aries. And then the other two conjunctions that occurred in September of 2010 and Jan of 2011 occurred in Pisces. I'm smiling because I know exactly what was going on for me at that time. And I know exactly how the planet of auspicious new beginnings and the planet of my truest self conjuncting at that time. The first one happening in the Aries part of the chart at 0 degrees Aries, I think, at 0 degrees Aries. And the second two to support that in Pisces. And I know what the Uranus transit through Aries then did for me in the Aries part of my chart. Made me true to myself in the Aries part of the chart. And the same interpretively would apply to you. So whatever cycle of setting you down an authentic path related primarily to the Aries part of your chart, supported by the Pisces part of the chart, started in 2010 and 2011, is now getting a reboot. You could argue that it is now closing out and is going to get, there's going to be a new path in the Taurus part of your chart that is going to get this electric bolt, electric shock, and has indeed been getting it since May 2023. When it comes to Jupiter conjuncting Uranus, lightning is not going to, and this lightning metaphor with Uranus is used a lot, you know, the epiphany, the quantum leaps of understanding, the aha moments, the, you know, the with Neptune, I associate the muses and inspiration. With Uranus, I associate intuition at that knowing, in that knowing psychic way. But more than that, a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is trying to set you forward in a way and a manner that is truly right for you in the Taurus part of your chart. It is happening at the end of Jupiter's 12-13 month transit from May 2023 to May 25th, 2024. But it has been developing all along. Since Jupiter entered Taurus, conjuncted with the North Node, was direct, went retrograde in the last quarter of 2023, went direct, has been moving fast enough, God knows, and is now getting ready to conjunct Uranus. And then a month or so after the conjunction will be like, all right, I have created my ending and my auspicious new beginning. Now it is up to you, client, and I've done it by conjuncting. It's not just because Jupiter is not going to conjunct Uranus in Gemini. The next conjunction is going to be another 12, 13 years from now. When is the next conjunction? 2037 in the sign of Cancer. But for the next 12, 13 years, Jupiter is going to be going through all the other parts of the chart. Uranus is slowly going to be making its way through Taurus and Gemini. So that by the time they meet up next, it's going to be in the sign of Cancer. So Jupiter's upcoming 12, 13 month endings and new beginnings of 12, 13 year cycles in every single house that it is going to now move forward to are not going to have this dynamism. The reason why I wanted to go over Jupiter's conjunctions with Chiron and the North Node is because these conjunctions have come one after another in the two parts of the chart that are at their most expansive, the Aries and the Taurus parts of the chart. Once again, Jupiter conjuncts Chiron in Aries in March 2023. It conjuncts the North Node in the middle of 2023, just as the North Node is crossing over and Jupiter is crossing in, and then it conjuncts Uranus April 20th, 2024. And the last time it conjuncted Uranus, if you want to understand what this idea is, this energy is, was June 2010 to Jan 2011, with the first one in Aries at 0 degrees and the second two in Pisces. Now, sometimes Jupiter, as it is going direct, retrograde, and direct, might conjunct Uranus 3 times if Uranus is transiting in its shadow degrees. Sometimes, like this year, it's going to be one aspect. It's going to be one conjunction. In the sign of Cancer, I think, as I was researching this 12, 13 years from now, yeah, it's going to be 3 conjunctions. But that's 2037, 38. We don't need to be worried about that right now. We'll concern ourselves with it right now. And all sorts of things might be said about Uranus. Liberty and sudden change and There's truth to that. There's truth to that. The kind of change we're talking about is, I don't want to use the word sudden as much as I want to use, I told you in February, I was like, the portal has opened again. There's something about the energy that is bigger and more expansive, and the way you get set on an authentic path by two planets that are about setting you or giving you the opportunity to go on an authentic path. And Uranus will do that, will put enough pressure on you so that even if you're not aligning with Uranus energy, the pressure is going to be strong enough that anybody who's feels like they're compromising your integrity, is demanding that you act in a way that isn't true to you, the pressure will be strong enough that you will react to it. But with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, what feels like a lightning bolt, what feels like happens over a certain amount of time. I'm talking the course of a year. But it is a seismic shift. And it is an opportunity. It liberates you. It liberates you to move in a direction that is right for you. A Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Jupiter and Chiron inaugurates a 12-13 year, creates an opportunity for healing in the Aries part of the chart. Great. That theme continues into this year. Great. Becomes really important this year, but it's part of that cycle and that chain of events that started a year ago. Again, some might say, well, are you always looking at how Jupiter and Chiron and the North Node eclipses are relating to each other? No. I am looking at it in Aries because there's a narrative. Because as one planet leaves, another thing occurs, and something occurs, and something, the activities are happening close enough that you can't just assume that there's no link to what a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction is doing in Aries and what a new moon solar eclipse is doing in Aries. And given the fact that the next new moon solar eclipse in 2024 is exactly conjunct Chiron, with Mercury retrograde going over Chiron 3 times, so Jupiter conjuncted the North Node, said, all right, start of a 12-13 year cycle in the Taurus part of the chart, lean into this direction. Let's help you move in the direction and grow within the strategies that are going to be right for you. Jupiter conjuncts Uranus, April 2024. The gates are open. The shackles have been removed to create an auspicious new beginning for you to move forward in the Taurus part of the chart in a way that speaks of integrity with yourself, your path, your way of doing things, what is right for you. Now, just so you know, Jupiter conjuncted Pluto in 2020. Jupiter conjuncted Saturn, remember 2020? Jupiter conjuncted Saturn in December 2020. Jupiter conjuncted Neptune, April 2022. Just so you have context for what those conjunctions may have felt like. Jupiter conjuncted Pluto in Capricorn in 2020. Pluto already transforming the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008. like, what is he doing? Bear with me for a second. Bear with me for a second. Bear with me for a second, my dears. Sorry, this is like this long wait, and it's like, Abhi, we are literally hanging with you. What the hell are you doing? It's going to take me too long to figure this out. I wanted to see where Jupiter conjuncted Pluto 12 years before. Was it in... here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Jupiter conjuncted Pluto. Prior to that, in 2007, 2008. I'll bet you that was in Sagittarius. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. So in 2020, Jupiter conjuncted Pluto in Capricorn, but prior to that, in 2007, December 2007, Jupiter conjuncted Pluto in Sagittarius. Each of these starting a 12 to 13-year cycle of an auspicious new beginning of continuing transformation in those parts of the chart. So that was 2020 in Capricorn. Oh, I'm not going to bore you. I'm getting too. This is why I enjoy astrology. I start to look at these patterns and start to get excited by all these dates and where they were and what they were doing and all that kind of stuff. Jupiter conjuncted Pluto in 2020. Jupiter conjuncted Saturn in December 2020, and then this would have felt different. Jupiter conjuncted Neptune in Pisces. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was in Aquarius, I'm pretty sure. Right? Because they both entered Aquarius at the same time. Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, April 2022. So if you know the Pisces part of the chart and what it is that Jupiter would have been creating for you, and the conversation, what the conversation between Jupiter and Neptune would look like as you headed towards April 2022, and what then, since 2022, that start of a 12-year cycle, 13-year cycle. And see, this is why what is happening and when it is happening becomes important. Jupiter conjuncts Neptune, starts a 13-year cycle related to that conjunction with Neptune. Saturn comes in by March 2023 to finally start to stabilize that part of the chart. It doesn't have to happen that way every time these conjunctions occur. It is specific to where we are. It is what allows me, through what I am observing and through reading charts for individuals and seeing the patterns for myself. Reading charts is a symbiotic process. You interpret the chart, and in the process and the feedback and the information that you gather from all these chart readings, it informs you, it gives you more data for what seems to be consistently happening in specific signs with these transits. And you continue to learn, and you continue to be surprised and amazed. And what you look for, not maniacally, but what comes to you is what is consistent. And so you grow, you continue to grow as an astrologer and say, I've seen this with this, and I've seen this with this, I've seen this with this conjunction in the sign of Pisces here, and I've seen this 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 here. There's this consistent theme. Then it enables me as someone to say, oh, this is what's been going on in the sign of Pisces. And if I keep getting that feedback over and over again with increasing reliability, and at the same time wondering how it is that some planetary transit out there in the skies could be impacting our lives in such a way, and kind of blowing my mind as an astrologer. So coming back to this so we can start to wrap this up. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus occurs on April the 20th. From my perspective, it is a conjunction that we have been building up to since May of last year. I think it's worth it to think of Jupiter conjuncting Chiron in March, in Aries, the North Node in Taurus, May to July 2023, and then now finally conjuncting Uranus a month before it leaves the sign of Taurus on April 20th, 2024. Wherever Jupiter goes, ends a 12-year 13-year cycle, starts a 13-year cycle. The focus is typically on the ending, on clearing the blank slate, on coming to a room and saying, that couch needs to go, on removing the couch and at least creating that blank slate, that blank space, so that you can then figure out what you're going to fill it with. In some cases, another couch starts to be on its way. In some cases, not quite yet. But it starts that process and it grows. That part of the chart now grows and experiences a certain amount of expansion depending on your partnership with Jupiter and your willingness and readiness to align with the path that is right for you, in this case, in the Taurus part of the chart, over the next 12, 13 years. When Jupiter comes back to Taurus in the next 12, 13 years, it's going to say, all right, that old cycle, etch-a-sketch. We're done. Now let's inaugurate a new cycle. This time around, like it did in 2011, 2010, 2011. At that time in the sign of Aries and Pisces, at this time in April 2024 in the sign of Taurus, Jupiter's ending in a 12, 13-year cycle is amplified and made powerful. First and foremost, given the fact that it is on the heels of these other expansive conjunctions with Chiron, but especially the North Node, and with the North Node in the same sign as the conjunction with Uranus. And it's been building up to this particular conjunction in Uranus, where Uranus is trying to, in the Taurus part of our chart, make us understand who we really are, what is true for us, and what is authentic, what is right, what is individual, at the risk of being unconventional. Our truth. When you look at a Uranus ruled sign like Aquarius, and the reason why people with strong Aquarius placements, even the Sun in Aquarius, have such a reputation for being such pains in the neck to get into an argument with, it is because butter does not melt. If this is not true, if I don't think this is true, I am not going to budge. Very Uranian. This is what is true for me. This is what I intuitively know to be right for me, because when I veer from this, I get very uncomfortable and very unhappy. So where's Taurus in your birth chart? Uranus is trying to get you to follow the path that is right for you. And Jupiter comes and conjuncts it and says, all right, let's inaugurate this path over the next 12, 13 years. So we are celebrating not only the inauguration of a 12, 13-year cycle in the Taurus part of our charts in a way that is liberating and may well feel like certain shackles or certain situations or certain realities that have been binding us, holding us, and that is what reality does. You need the energy of the eclipses. You need the energy of Uranus. You need the energy of a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction during the eclipses to accelerate the dismantling of a certain reality so that it can move you on the path that is right for you. It is a much more seismic shift. And one that, in conjunction with everything that I've been talking about in this video, has been occurring. You can't just look at April 20th, 2024. It has been occurring ever since Jupiter came into Taurus And you could even take it back to Jupiter's transit over Aries because of this switcheroo between Jupiter and the North Node at around the same time between Aries and Taurus. But certainly once Jupiter marched into Taurus, conjuncted the North Node, and started to head towards this conjunction to Uranus, it's been operating for the past year or so. And now it's gathering momentum and completion. As I've told you with conjunctions or with any aspects, it's not the date on which the aspect is exact. It is when it is approaching it. Particularly when it's about 5 degrees away is when, 5, 6 degrees, that's when you're just like, all right. That's why when you look at a month like February, not only are you looking at Mercury and Venus and Mars conjuncting Pluto, not only are you looking at, in Aquarius, not only are you looking at the Sun and Mercury and Saturn conjuncting on the same day in Pisces, you're also looking at everything else that's going on around it. You're looking at January 25th, the week before, week after, being 2 months before the lunar eclipse on March 25th. You're looking at Jupiter inching closer and closer to Uranus and Taurus. So when people start to pinpoint dates of what it is that is happening, it's as planets get closer and they're on their way to something as opposed to on the day of. Now, this coming week, as I've said, and you've, part of the reason why I did the optimism video, the video I did prior to this a few days ago, is because I was like, as Venus gets ready to approach the North Node and conjunct Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde gets ready to conjunct Chiron, and Venus is going to conjunct Chiron as well. As these entities conjunct each other next week, I can start to feel Venus going in the middle of all the eclipse Mercury retrograde craziness and the fact that we just had the Mars-Saturn conjunction in Pisces. And let me just start to sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust and show you that ray of light. So who knows, as next week progresses, what Venus continues to shower. It may be that we've already gotten a sense of what that ray of light is. And it's a question of latching onto it and holding onto it and see what it expands into. So next week may be, and by next week I mean the week of April the 15th. May well be, and as I said, the week after that becomes a little bit more intensely grounded because Mercury is going to be going direct, and so it's going to be stationary, and Mars is going to be getting ready to conjunct Neptune. So that could be some headbutting that goes on the week following the week of April the 15th. So a reason to celebrate a powerful Jupiter transit through Taurus. Not all transits of Jupiter are going to have this kind of power behind them because Jupiter will not be conjuncting the North Node and Uranus on the heels of conjuncting Chiron in Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, etc., etc., etc. And to celebrate a potential seismic shift in our lives that we last experienced in 2010, 2011. And we can all look at seismic shifts. Pluto entering a particular sign is a seismic shift. I've asked you to go back to 2008 and see when Pluto entered Capricorn. What happened that started, that you can identify, that started Pluto transforming the Capricorn part of the chart from 2008 to the end of 2024? Now, what's interesting is how many people have said to me, it started to, and this is true for me as well, it started in 2008, but it was really 2011 that I felt it take root. And could that be because as aspects and planets are in conversation with each other, that the transformation the Capricorn part of the chart started in 2008, but then the fact that the nature of a Jupiter-Uranus transformative conjunction is specific to this idea. It is a seismic shift that is different to other aspects because it really is liberating you from a set of constraints and a certain reality that has been prevailing for some time. And that's what I mean by it is a liberating, expansive, opening conjunction. Shackle breaking. Now, do we still have to deal with heaviness in the Pisces part of the chart? Sure, and putting the stability in and dealing with the reality. And yes, we know Saturn is there, and right now Mars is there. And yes, we've still got Mercury retrograde, and what fresh hell is that going to bring as it starts to go direct? Think about. I can think of 3 specific sets of conversations that I was involved in around April the 1st. And I'm very curious to see as I head towards April the 25th and Mercury goes direct, am I going to be revisiting them again? What is that going to look like? A new reality with Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, a conjunction that happens once every 12 or 13 years. Last happened 2010, 2011. In the Aries part of the chart, supported by the Pisces part of the chart. This here in the Taurus part of the chart. On the heels of Jupiter's conjunctions with Chiron to some extent, but especially the North Node. Contemplate, appreciate, enjoy, and figure out how you're going to take advantage of it. This portal opening that might allow you to move in a direction related primarily to the Taurus part of the chart, the house occupied by Taurus in your chart, and in a supportive way, the Aries part of your chart. And it is the start of a 12-year cycle. Remember, it is the start of a 12-year cycle. But with the conjunction with Uranus, it has a much more noticeable seismic reality shifting feel to it. The reason why I paused was I don't like the word feel because it's not just a feeling, it's present. I will let you ponder on this. It's lovely to be able to do a video like this in the middle of everything else. As I said when I started this, as I prepared for this, I was just like, oh, this is going to be so much fun to talk about. And we get to think about our lives in a slightly more expansive way than just a kind of, oh, this is what's going to happen in 2 weeks. And we're going to have the full moon here, and we're going to have a new moon here, and Mercury's going to go direct, and Mars is going to conjunct Neptune, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now, I try to connect those with larger themes and cycles, but here we go. If you are interested in having me look at your birth chart and do a reading for you regarding your birth chart and the transits that are going on right now, my email address is in the description box below. You can use that to email me and ask me about my rates and information. I will send it to you. If you found this video useful, helpful, please feel free to tell your friends about it, share it with others, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and there's a bell icon next to all of you folks who sit and listen to this every video. Thank you. I'm so aware that it's a spiel now that is developed and sort of just trips off the tongue. There's a bell icon next to the subscribe button. If you hover over it, there's a wiggly bell on top, and you'll be notified then whenever I do new videos. Feel free to like, comment on the video. It gives it more circulation over YouTube. And my thanks to everyone for supporting the channel and supporting my work. Tomorrow I will do the weekly overview, and we will take it from there because God knows the charts never stop moving. All right, thanks.